Sir, you're under HOA arrest. Picture this. It's 6:47 a.m. I'm standing in my own driveway, coffee still steaming in my hand, when two clowns stroll up wearing cheap, fake police uniforms, armed with nothing but plastic zip ties. The smell of fresh morning dew mixes with their bargain bin cologne as they declare I'm being detained for an unauthorized vehicle. Yeah, that happened. My truck, a federally issued Ford F-150, parked on my own property. These jokers had no clue I'd spent 15 years hunting down real criminals. Drug cartels, money launderers, fraudsters, and now these wannabe cops think they can cuff me with Home Depot zip ties? Let me back up a sec and tell you how I got from FBI agent to HOA target. My name's Marcus Lane. After a decade and a half busting white-collar crime, I figured I'd found peace in Willow Creek Estates, a quiet suburban paradise with 800 homes, decent neighbors, and an HOA charging a modest $45 a month for upkeep. That was before Brenda Crawford took over. Now, Brenda, imagine every HOA nightmare you've ever heard of. Then give it platinum blonde hair, oversized sunglasses glued to her face, and a clipboard she wields like it's the sword of justice. She didn't just run the HOA. She owned a private enforcement company contracted by the HOA. Oh, and her husband? Deputy Sheriff Rick Crawford. Conflict of interest much? Yeah, that was the first red flag. 3 weeks into her reign, I find an orange violation notice zip-tied to my mailbox. $300 fine for parking a commercial vehicle, my truck, in a residential zone. The cited offense? Vehicle height exceeding 72 inches. So I bust out the tape measure, and what do I find? Half a dozen trucks in the neighborhood, all the same height, same mods, none of them fine. I call the HOA office. Brenda's voice cuts through the line like glass. Those residents are compliant in other areas. Other areas? What areas? Turns out, the board can enforce rules however they want, at their discretion. Sounds more like a power trip than community management. I asked for clarification. She sent a letter full of legalese about community standards and resident cooperation. Translation? Kiss the ring or pay the fine. Brenda prowled the neighborhood at dawn like a buzzard hunting for violations. The smell of her cheap perfume mixing with diesel fumes became my new morning soundtrack. What really raised my hackles was the pattern. Only people with political yard signs she disliked, or trucks that looked too working class, or residents who dared to challenge her. Those were the ones getting fined. Appeals? Sure, if you can make a 2 p.m. Wednesday meeting on short notice. Miss it, pay up. This wasn't about safety, it was about control and cash. And Brenda was milking it for all it was worth, but she didn't know who she was messing with. I'd taken down cartel bosses who had more sense than this. 2 weeks after the truck fine, another notice arrived. $500 for intimidating conduct toward HOA officials. My crime? Asking for documentation at a public meeting. In Brenda's kingdom, that's apparently domestic terrorism. Then she launched the Willow Creek Safety Patrol. Think bright yellow vests, clipboards, and amateur hour surveillance. Neighbors started stalking me with phones, snapping photos every time I moved. Janet from 3 houses down filming me getting mail, Bob from across the street capturing my every exit from the driveway. It was like living in a bad reality show, except I knew a thing or two about surveillance. These clowns had all the subtlety of a marching band. While they played spy games, I was digging into the money trail. Turns out, Brenda's company was billing the HOA $2,400 a month. Rick, her deputy sheriff hubby, was pulling another $800 for security consulting. For context, the previous management charged $400 total. No bids, no approvals, just Brenda hiring herself and her husband, setting rates however they liked. I walked into the next HOA meeting with binders of evidence, financial records, state laws on competitive bidding, everything. Brenda's face went from smug to pale as I called out the illegal no-bid contracts. Emergency service provisions, she stammered. Emergency? Like Mrs. Patterson's cat stuck in a tree? The room laughed, but I wasn't done. Residents came forward. Sarah fined 4 excessive holiday decorations, 3 pumpkins. Dave cited 4 inappropriate landscaping native wildflowers. Mrs. Chin slapped 4 loitering while walking her dog normally. All had challenged Brenda's authority. Then came the real shocker. Brenda filed a lien against my house for the intimidation fine. I hadn't even had time to appeal. It was clear now. This wasn't petty. It was a shakedown dressed up as HOA management. We formed a little resistance, meeting regularly with coffee and cookies, sharing stories and evidence. Brenda's past was no secret either. She'd fled another HOA role after a lawsuit in Arizona, had her real estate license suspended twice, and Rick had multiple internal affairs complaints. They were repeat offenders. I connected with a top HOA attorney, documented everything with FBI-grade gear, and built a case worthy of a criminal enterprise. 8 neighbors joined forces, sharing stories of harassment and retaliation. One day, walking to my mailbox, apparently a federal crime, Tyler, one of Brenda's nephews turned enforcement officer, cited me for jaywalking inside the subdivision. There's no sidewalk, no crosswalk, but hey, HOA rules, right? When I asked to see their ID, things got weird. They claimed full legal authority but refused to show any credentials. Tyler even called 911 to report me, a federal agent, as a non-compliant resident. I smiled and called my FBI contact. Mike, ready for a good Section 1983 case? This one's a doozy. Real cops showed up, including Deputy Rick Crawford, backing his wife's goons. When I pulled out my badge, Tyler froze, Brad took a step back, and Rick went pale. Game over for Brenda's little empire, but she wasn't done. Days later, real police came to my door, based on Brenda's false claim I threatened her. The conflict of interest was obvious, and Officer Martinez knew it. When I played the audio of Tyler admitting to impersonation, Rick's face went through every color imaginable. The investigation ended with no charges against me, but a federal civil rights case just sparked to life. While Rick sulked away, I ramped up the federal investigation, RICO charges, wire fraud, mail fraud, civil rights violations. Brenda had built a criminal racket disguised as an HOA. Then came the real showstopper. One morning, 2 hired security officers in full police tactical gear showed up with zip ties to arrest me for unauthorized vehicle modifications. This was no longer amateur hour. Brenda had crossed the line into federal crimes. I flashed my FBI badge. The look on their faces priceless. We were just following orders, they stammered. Brenda had just handed me the final piece for a federal indictment. Neighbors gathered, watching the absurd spectacle. I called Mike again. Send the team. We've got attempted unlawful detention, impersonation, conspiracy. The real law enforcement was arriving, and Brenda's suburban kingdom was crumbling. Then came the bombshell, the HOA management contract obtained through public records. Brenda's company was entitled to 15% of every fine collected, plus monthly fees, and Rick's consulting added thousands more. No bids, no transparency, just Brenda lining her pockets. Fine revenue exploded from $3,000 annually to $47,000 in 8 months. Meanwhile, the HOA's reserve funds dropped like a rock, with thousands spent on undocumented repairs. Her business license had expired over a year ago. She'd been operating illegally, collecting millions under false pretenses, committing mail and wire fraud on a massive scale. This wasn't HOA drama, this was organized crime. Our alliance exploded to 31 families, each armed with paperwork, photos, witness statements, and a shared determination to end Brenda's reign. We prepared for the showdown. Evidence packets, media coverage, live streaming, attorneys ready. The community center packed with 450 residents, the biggest HOA meeting in local history. Brenda tried to dissolve the HOA secretly, only notifying 12 of her allies. Courts blocked her attempt. She even tried to bribe me in a grocery store parking lot, offering to wipe fines if I kept quiet. I recorded everything. FBI-grade confession of bribery, conspiracy, abuse of power, right there in frozen food aisle 5. On meeting day, I laid it all out. Financial schemes, intimidation tactics, fake police uniforms, and that grocery store recording. The crowd erupted. Even Mrs. Patterson's cat hissed in solidarity. Then FBI Special Agent Mike Torres stood, badge gleaming, announcing federal charges against the Kensingtons for conspiracy, wire fraud, and civil rights violations. Justice wasn't just served, it was celebrated. Brenda tried to scream, "Witch hunt," but I calmly raised my badge, telling her I'm not a rogue agent, just someone really good at his job. The room exploded in applause. 6 months later, Brenda pled guilty, serving 18 months, ordered to pay restitution, banned for life from HOA involvement. Rick lost his deputy badge, and her nephews got probation and community service. Our community healed. New board slashed fees, hired legitimate management, and property values soared. We even started the Willow Creek Transparency Foundation, helping other neighborhoods fight corrupt HOAs. This story? It's not just about one neighborhood or one bad actor. It's about empowering ordinary people to stand up against petty tyrants who think they own the place. Suburban corruption is real, but so is resistance. Now, I want to hear from you. What's your HOA horror story? Drop it in the comments.